as you said, that there was a feeling within the club that there was progression made up to the end of last season. How does he convince them? What does he say to them now when they ask him difficult questions? How does he convince them that there is still progress at Manchester United under him?
Look, it's not a board, it's not an executive or management team that's got any experience of winning trophies. You know, you look right the way through sort of what would be the football department of the club, whether it be recruitment, whether it be the sort of CEO, the decision makers. None of them have got success of delivering titles in football clubs. So I think there's an element of them not knowing what to do. They'll be very unsure at this moment in time about what to do, because in the past, over the last 9 years, that same group of people have sacked managers after 8 months in David Moyes. They've then obviously sacked a manager after winning an FA Cup final. They've sacked Jose Mourinho after giving him a new contract and not support him in a transfer market. I suspect there is a real sort of what would be yo-yo going on in their minds, and they haven't got the experience, I don't think, to be able to deal with it. Ed Woodward leaves the club apparently in the next month or so. Who's going to take over? At that point, you've got a situation where you're handing a hospital pass over to a new CEO. They haven't got the football experience higher up in the club in terms of, well, they have, but they don't utilise it, and they just haven't got. You know, they're not as good as Manchester City and Liverpool off the pitch. So Manchester City and Liverpool are better on the pitch, but this comes from the top. Ollie's a function of what's happening right the way through the club in terms of the last 8 to 9 years since obviously Sir Alex Ferguson and David Gill left, who were successful with the players that they had. And then when they left, it's been a mess since, and I think we're just seeing a continuation of that. This is why my view at the moment is a new manager could come in here and I think he could end up exactly the same, and I think that's what they'll think, and they'll just end up going to the end of the season. I think I said a few weeks ago, Manchester United have to try and resurrect this season and get to the end of the season and then have a look at it and reset at that point. I'm not quite sure what Mike is saying. I know the point he's making, but is he saying that the manager should be sacked tomorrow? Maybe he is. I mean, ultimately, I wouldn't think that's the right thing to do at this moment in time. I'm
not saying that the manager should be sacked. In fact,
well, what are you saying then, Micah? What are you saying?
I've protected Ollie since he's got in the job. He's a legend of the club, but managers get sacked for these sort of performances. Every time we come to Man United, it's it's the players, or Pogba's not running, or it's Lindelof. Or at the end of the day, the manager's at the helm. He got the players. He goes out and tells them what to do. Performances like this against Liverpool and Man City have not been good enough. Yes, it might start from the very top, but the manager works day in, day out with these players. He must know the best of, like Van der Beek. Van der Beek is on the bench. When he's on the bench, the fans are clapping him coming on, seeing why is he not getting a chance. We have the same conversation every single time.
But Micah, you sound more wound up than me. I mean, the fact of the matter is you're still saying you wouldn't sack him. So what you're saying different than we're saying. We're as annoyed with that performance as you are. That was a shocker.
I'm not saying I wouldn't sack, because I would never say to sack any manager, because I don't think that's right.
So you're not saying anything different than we are?
I'm just saying what I'm seeing out there for the standards of Man United is not good enough, and something has to give.
OK, so here's another way of phrasing that question. Do you think another manager could do a better job with this squad of players than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer?
Of course I could. Of course I could. But let's be real about the situation. They've got the resume for that. They'll have leagues or Champions League, whatever and coming into a club of this stature with the players, of course they could do a better job. Let's have it right. We like Ollie because he's a great guy, he's a legend of the club, but he's not got the credentials of the other managers. So when you ask me, can Jose finish second? Do you know what I mean? And
the biggest problem I think Ollie will have now, when he's brought some new players in, Varane, obviously Ronaldo, world-class players who won big prizes, and they've come into a dressing room with players, and if they're now all of a sudden looking at Ollie and some of his staff, because I've been a player here, when staff come in, you do look at staff or manager, go, what have you got? What are you bringing to the party? And if all of a sudden there's a bit of doubt amongst a group of players with Ollie and the staff, and they're just not quite sure, is he going to lead us? Is he giving us the right instructions to get the job done? And if that uncertainty, then Man United, again, are in huge trouble, and Ollie is. If they've got the total belief, and they're going, yeah, Ollie's the man, we'll do whatever you do, we'll run through brick walls for you, then fantastic. And whatever shape we play, and they've chopped and changed in the last few weeks, great, you go for it. But if there's that doubt, as I said, when I was here, when we were a decent team, and they bring in different coaches, people like Walter Smith, Steve McLaren, Brian Kidd, obviously the manager stayed there for a long time. But when you're looking and going, I'm not sure, but you make sure you never get to that stage. You've got to have the right people who are giving them message across. You go, listen, whatever you say, we will do as a team. We will go for it, and we will give everything for the jersey. But for this group, again, I go back to personalities and characters. There's just that question mark. And if they're starting to doubt Ollie and his staff, trouble.
Let me ask you a question, Gary. Do you think there's better managers out there who are better fit for Manchester United?
I thought Jose Mourinho's a better manager than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I thought Louis van Gaal was. David Moyes was. They've all had better pedigrees than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. However, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has finished second in the league last season and has gained possession, so there's no science to that question, Micah. There are better managers. Of course there are better managers in terms of credentials and on paper, but the confusion that exists at this club at this moment in time is that they've gone for two managers previously, have got world-class credentials, and that shouldn't stop them doing it again. But I think that's where the confusion or the hesitancy comes from the board, that they've been down this route of bringing in a Mourinho before, so they wouldn't bring in a Conte because they've been burnt by that.
Gary, were those managers, Mourinho and Van Gaal, 'cause I've heard you say this, were those managers, Mourinho and Van Gaal, at the top of their game? Yes, they had been super coaches, if you like. They had won trophies. Mourinho won trophies at Manchester United. Van Gaal won the FA Cup at Manchester United. But were they managers at the very top of their game?
But who would they get now, Kelly? So if you couldn't
that's not what I'm asking.
No, but what I'm saying to you is, if you say now, okay, Pochettino's got a sort of what would be a lack of trophies on his CV to say that should he come and manage Manchester United? Because I know what would happen if he didn't. Well, he didn't win trophies before he came. So I think the problem you've got now at Manchester United is the confusion and hesitancy that exists in the boardroom is what happened in the last 8 to 10 years. There's a lack of decisiveness at the top of knowing what to do and how to make the right decision. They're unsure. There's no doubt that's all it can be. And I think what they'll do, they'll stick to the long-term plan, because that's, I think, what they decided they are going to do, and they're going to get through these what would be massive dips that are existing at this moment in time. But there's no doubt you could go and get a manager with a better CV than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer tomorrow. There's no doubt Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wouldn't deny that. None of us can. However, they've done that with Mourinho and they've done that with Van Gaal, they've done that with Moyes, and it hasn't worked. It's been spectacularly bad.
I can't remember Man United having two performances back-to-back like that at home, ever. And I think the way the board will see it, the board will see... and the Glazier's coming for a bit of stick, and I don't understand that either. They've spent over £1 billion, so they take a dividend. So what? It's a business. They took a risk when they first got involved here at United. Straightforward business. We're putting something in. We risk losing to buy Man United. It's worked out for them.
And that's far too big a subject for us to get into a debate.
But I'm trying to absolve them of blame. I'm trying to absolve them of any blame, and I don't think they should be carrying any blame. So it's without argument, this is Ollie's team. That's to the people upstairs. This is Ollie's team. It's all his problems to solve. We've given him the players that he will have asked for and now solve the problem. I'll come back to it. I can never remember Man United having back-to-back performances like that here at Old Trafford. Van Gaal didn't have one, Mourinho didn't have one. But Ollie's got two now back-to-back, which to say it's disappointing would be an understatement. I'm being polite. I can never remember a game of football like that here at United, ever.
Graham, you've had experience when you got a group of players at Liverpool when you took over that were coming to the end of their careers, and you sort of found it in that you were there 3, 4, 5 years in that period where the club's just not quite got what it used to have. You've been there, you know how difficult it is. You know, you've seen that. So then it went on to Ronnie Moran, then it went on to different managers, and you know that back and forward. That's the trajectory that Liverpool have been on as a club. Manchester United are now going through that, and you wonder whether what can you do to stop it? What can you do to stop it? Because everyone that's there, including you, I'm sure, at Liverpool 30-odd years ago, you were trying your best, you were competent.
I was there 2.5 years on an FA Cup. Yeah, we weren't challenging for the league, but that was the emergence to Man United. But that's for another day. But I think, I know how difficult the job is. You know, to correct the situation and try and get yourself challenging again when your nearest rival, your biggest rival, Man United, is just emerging as a force for the next 25 years. And that's the problem that Ollie has. He's got Liverpool now, all-powerful, and he's got a team 5 miles from here. If it is 5 miles, 3 miles, all-powerful. So, you know, and he spent an absolute fortune. And that, so combined with the two teams being super teams at this time, and combined with him spending, did you say 400 million?
Over, I think.
Over 400 million. That's where the pressure comes from. And correctly so, because Ollie will be on a great deal of money as manager of Man United. That is the price on the ticket of managing a big football club. The expectation level goes through the roof. And that's something he has to He has to manage himself.
And Micah got more managers sacked at City than you don't know what.
I still last longer than you in a job, though.
Yeah, you're brave from the gantry level.